Well, let's talk about Congress because Congress
spending.
may be adjourned until after the election, but members are definitely still talking about taxes.
Absolutely. They are. Democratic Senator Ben Nelson suggesting a flat tax, long favored by conservatives, might be a good idea.
Well, not to Ronald Reagan's old budget chief who says forget the flat tax. What we need is a national sales tax to replace the income tax. Joining us exclusively, former Reagan administration budget director David Stockman. Great to have you here. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right. So, oh boy, you want to deal with the sales tax now, but in place of an income tax. How high do you see the sales tax?
Well, here's the problem. We got our consumption and income report this morning, and it was not encouraging, despite what you might have heard. Half of the gain was because unemployment insurance went up, and that was merely a statistical adjustment because it expired temporarily in July. So if we look at the underlying numbers, it goes to the heart of what's wrong. Pre-tax income was $11 trillion at an annual rate, pre-tax personal income. This year, the income tax will collect $900 billion, 8%. In other words, we have this huge IRS bureaucracy. We got thousands of pages of code. We got tax rates that go from 12 to 35%, and we're collecting 8.
That's why you're in favor of the flat tax.
The thing is,
you'd like to get rid of the code and just put it all in a postcard.
It's a monstrosity. I call it ground zero for crony capitalism, K Street lobbyists, special interest.
But again, you're making the case
unfair.
for Steve Forbes' flat tax, aren't you?
But let me go to the second number in today's report. Personal consumption expenditure, PCE, as you know, was $10.3 trillion. That sounds like a big number, but it was 71% of GDP, which means we're still in bubble land in terms of excess consumption versus savings and investment. Until 1980, our average consumption to GDP was 64%, and that's healthy over a long period of time. Had we not gone into this bubble land and this massive credit expansion and debt expansion and so forth, we would be at 64% today. Consumption would be $1 trillion lower.
So
we're way over consuming, and what we need to do is shift taxation onto consumption to discourage it, and off income and investment and labor and work and so forth to encourage it, or we're never going to get out of this debt trap that we're in.
David, if we raise the sales tax to cut down on consumption, won't we kill a lot of businesses of the products that we actually consume? And wouldn't that be deadly for business in America?
I don't think so, because we're going to have to make the adjustment, and I would take off $1.2 trillion of income taxes from everybody, and dividend taxes. We would take off $300 billion of corporate taxes. We would readjust the economy in favor of production and investment and away from this excess consumption that's killing us. We've been doing this for 30 years.
Because again, what you're saying runs in the face of a lot of what we've been hearing over the past few months, which is that companies have gotten rid of a lot of their debt. They have built up a lot of cash. Individuals have gotten rid of a lot of their debt. We see that credit card debt has come down, and people are getting more responsible about their own accounts. You're saying that's dead wrong.
That's dead wrong. In healthy times, household debt to income was about 60%. It peaked at 130, out of this world. It's come down a tiny bit. It's 125%. The whole debt reduction that we've had on households has been due to credit card defaults and mortgage defaults. People haven't actually reduced voluntarily their leverage that much. This is a recipe for disaster. So we've got to fundamentally change the direction and get a healthy economy. It's the Keynesians who tell you that all we have to do is have a little more consumption, and then maybe GDP will go up, and then maybe the stock market will get a little more hot and bothered, and stock prices will go up. That is all wrong.
Okay,
that is heading for the wall.
Now, if people were to be taxed at a sales tax level, which is what you're proposing,
right,
then you'd have everybody with some skin in the game, too. You know, 48% of the population here in the U.S. doesn't pay income tax.
Right.
Yet they utilize a lot of the services for which we pay taxes. Do you think that that then changes the psychology of Americans?
I think it might help, and I think
How?
we could close the deficit by putting on a 20% consumption tax, abolishing all income tax. That would replace corporate income, personal income, and add
But it'd put all those poor IRS agents out of work.
And that would be a good thing. There's
And accountants.
100,000 of them.
The
Okay?
problem. Let me just throw a problem
yes,
at you though,
okay.
because Milton Friedman says the biggest problem with the sales tax is that it's too good. It collects too much money. It's too effective, and government will grow even bigger than it is now.
Well, the point is we're spending $3.8 trillion, we're collecting $2.2. We're borrowing 40 cents on a dollar. We have no problem in this country spending, and we can't collect enough money to begin to pay our bills, and we're depending on the Chinese to keep buying those bonds, and I say that's a bad thing. Now, how do we get the public to go for this big switch from income to consumption? We couple it with a one-time wealth tax, and this will get conservatives upset, but I will tell you this. A one-time wealth tax of 10% on the top 5% would generate $4 trillion. They could pay it over 10 years. We could pay off half the national debt. And it's due because the bubble we've been through has created unbelievable windfalls to the very top ranks of our society.
It's not just conservatives who would say this. It's wealthy liberals who are out there, too, would say that wouldn't hurt the economy.
Well, I'm calling on George Soros. Put your
and
money
you a
where
Reagan
your mouth
guy.
is. Okay, because here's what I'm saying. Take the top 5%. It's 5 million households. They had $8 trillion in net worth in 1985. 25 years later, they have $40 trillion in net worth. Now, that five-fold increase, the greatest in known history, was not simply because they were smart and because they looked nice and maybe because they innovated something. It was because we've had a huge windfall rise in asset values.
You're not worried about this falling very heavily on the small and mid-sized companies that take their income as personal income, take their profit?
Put it above $5 million.
Above $5 million.
One-time net worth tax above $5 million. Couple it with a consumption tax. Get rid of income taxes entirely and start to get this economy on a sustainable
Now, do you have one
footing.
of those red phones directly to the Oval Office, and you can talk to the president and talk him into this thing?
Yeah, but not the president of this universe.
Good to see you, David. David Stockman, former OMB chief
you.
of Ronald Reagan. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good to have you here exclusively.